Hello guys, this is TDSSMets2448. Welcome to a different video, hopefully a recurring series, a little Tuesday podcast. Hope this comes out on Tuesday. This is going to be a little thing where I talk about news in racing, maybe video games, maybe other sports that I like, and it's unusual coming out on a Tuesday, but video games come out on Tuesdays, like NASCAR Heat 2. Movies often come out on Tuesdays, or at least they come out on Blu-ray or DVD or whatever. And so, maybe it'll become a recurring thing. So let's start off with what I imagine most of you come here to my channel for, NASCAR. And playoffs are about to begin. Yay, chase. Yay, chase point. Playoff points. Yay. As coming off, Kyle Larson winning at Richmond. I'm not gonna lie, I've been sort of disenchanted with the Monster Energy Cup series, with the whole trying to fix what's already broken, in my opinion. The broken elimination chase system they've tried to fix with stage points and playoff points, and encumbered wins and unencumbered wins and cucumbered wins and pickled wins, and just to go on a little rant here. I grew up with the chase. I don't mind chase version 1, 1.1, 1.2, 10-man chase, the 12-man chase, the 13-man Singapore sling chase. That's fine with me. I can't stand the 16-man chase. It makes no sense. It doesn't prove anything. It's not like they're trying too much to make it like the NCAA tournament, like the NBA, like the NFL, like MLB. It's an MVP award. That's what it's supposed to be, whether that be over 36 races or over 26 and then 10 races. But it's not supposed to be this weird action, excitement, elimination, blown engines, crashes, green, white, checkered, overtime, yeah, bitch, yeah. Anyway, trying to look over the standings for this stupid chase. Find them. Okay, so leader in the points, Martin Truex Jr., 20 points ahead of my man Kyle Larson, and those are probably the two favorites to win, although I'd put my money on the Toyota program over the Ganassi program. I think Kyle Larson is elevating that team to places they should probably not be. Every once in a while that Ganassi team shows some spark. They showed 2010 when McMurray won 4 races, but they're not a top team. They just have a top driver. And then Kyle Busch, Brad Keselowski, Jimmy Johnson. Jimmy Johnson actually has, it says here on NASCAR.com, 2,017 points, which is fantastic. That's awesome. Anyway. But, the favorites, you never bet against Jimmy Johnson, and I wouldn't bet against Kyle Busch either, but I really think it's Truex or Larson, whosever engines can last all 10 races, basically. No engine failures, no breakdowns. But I wouldn't bet against Jimmy Johnson either. Him and Chad Knaus, they're preparing something. Hendrick hasn't been the top team this year, but, they've got something under the belt. They're not sharing with the other 3 cars. And what could Casey Kanan Jr. do with it anyway? The other guys, Harvick, Hamlin, Ricky Stenhouse, Blaney, Elliott, Newman. Ryan Newman? How the hell did he get in here? Oh yeah, he won that race at, Phoenix. Kurt Busch, Casey Kane. Piss off, Casey Kane. Retire. Austin Dillon, it's a nice feel-good story. Matt Kenseth and Jamie McMurray. Oh, okay. I don't think Jamie McMurray won a race this year, but, whatever. Congratulations on being 16th in points, or 15th or 14th, or wherever he numerically actually is in points. Because, the points don't matter. The actual points don't matter. Just stage points and playoff points. Anyway. Shh. Calm down. Calm down, everybody. No, Jamie McMurray did not. I remember he did not win a race this weekend. The McDonald's Cessna car is not number 1. It's number 16. which means obviously Daniel Suarez did not make the playoffs, Clint Bowyer did not make the playoffs, and those are two guys who really deserve the win in your in system. It doesn't, I don't think, rewards properly, because Kurt Busch may have won the Daytona 500, but I think Bowyer really deserved to be in the playoffs, and it's unfortunate that, especially after the year he had last year, he's not going to get in. But, Brian France and his great ideas. Brian France, the worst president of NASCAR ever, in my opinion. But I think it's the prevailing opinion. Anyway, I might make a top 16 or top 3 prediction. I'll just make it now. Truex wins the championship. Final 4. Truex, Larson, Jimmy Johnson, and either Keselowski or Kyle Busch. I'm going with Kyle Busch. Truex wins it. And it doesn't matter. The rest of them don't matter, really. But if no mechanical failures, Truex wins it. I hope. I really hope so, because he really deserves a championship. I'm not doing the other rounds because it doesn't matter. None of it matters. It's all just a lie. So, going down the standings, 17th, Clint Bowyer, 18th, Eric Jones, 19th, Logano, 20th, Suarez, 21st, Trevor Bayne, 22nd, Dale Earnhardt Jr., 23, Paul Menard, 24th, Ty Dillon, who I think is having a better year than his points would indicate. But anyway, it's so strange that, the 16 people are eligible for the championship. It doesn't make any sense. Now, just my prediction for Rookie of the Year, I think Suarez will have enough points to beat Eric Jones, but if Eric Jones gets a win, they'll probably just give it to him. Good for him, I guess. I like Daniel Suarez more, but I don't think he's necessarily less talented than Eric Jones. But Eric Jones is like a Kyle Busch type driver, or a Kyle Larson type driver, or a Chase Elliott type driver. He's ready out of the box. He probably could have gone to the Cup Series straight when they gave him the original KBM contract when he was 17 or whatever. He probably could have gone in a Cup car, but they wanted to give him a little seasoning. Suarez, kind of like Bubba Wallace, is one of those guys who needs a little seasoning, a little time to get acclimated, a little time to get comfortable, and he'll be fine. He'll win some races. He might be a champion. He'll be a very good driver. He'll at least be as good as Greg Biffle. Greg Biffle has a bunch of wins, so that would be a pretty good career. On a related note, let's go turn to first Daniel Suarez and Subway restaurants leaving after the donut fiasco, which is that's I've seen we did see something like that with Nature's Bakery, but it really seems like if they really wanted to cancel the contract because of the donuts and the breakfast, they would have done it the day it happened. Really, they were just. I can imagine the legal department was just looking through things, looking through film, looking through press releases. What can we do to break the contract? They found something. They found Miss Rutledge Wood and him handing out donuts, and that's what they wanted. And I'll tell you what, Subway's been in the sport for a while now, since maybe 2005, 2006. No, actually, they were there in 2001 with Kenny Wallace and Eel River Racing, the 27 car, and then they were Tony Stewart and Carl Edwards, and they stayed with Edwards obviously because he's a much better spokesman than Tony Stewart. But in that situation, it's not the worst way for a sponsor to do business. It's not the worst way sponsors ever done business in NASCAR. It's not the most unceremonious way sponsors left the sport either. Subway, thank you for your service, I suppose. Suarez will be fine. He's not a paid driver per se, but, a lot of the Mexican drivers and all sorts of motorsports are sponsored by the Carlos Slim Industries, Telcel, Telmex. If you see Telcel, Telmex, that's a Carlos Slim company. There's Claro. Those are basically telecommunications companies in Mexico. So, he'll be fine and, whatever. Cover 8 races. He could just put Toyota or Joe Gibbs Driven on the car. Whatever. Eris can cover it. He'll be fine. Let's move on to something more interesting, I think, is Richard Petty Motorsports and their deal with Smithfield exploding. And you can argue that Smithfield stayed there for a while with relatively mediocre results, with Petty. So basically, Richard Petty Motorsports, which is the result of Evernham Motorsports, the original Petty Enterprises, and Yates Racing all imploding on themselves and then merging. But they should just be happy they're still in business, that they're still in motorsports, because that team was three great teams turning into one 4-car miserable team, where you had Casey Kane winning every once in a while, but clearly unhappy. You had Allmendinger getting the best out of crappy cars. You had Elliott Sadler getting the worst cars in the world. And then you had Reed Sorensen and Paul Menard just not doing anything. And then, after 2011, 2011, I think they downsized. Kane left for Red Bull for that 1 year. Menard went to RCR. Almond and who else was it? Sadler went down with KHI to the Busch, was in the Nationwide Series, Busch Series. I still call it the Busch Series. It'll always be the Busch Series. And shout out to Xfinity for sponsoring the series, and shout out to Nationwide, but it'll always be the Busch Series or the Busch Grand National Series. But anyway, they downsized, and with Ambrose and Allmendinger, and then later with I guess Ambrose and Almirola, I guess. That he came in right after Allmendinger, I think. But yeah, they did all right with what they had. And the team's been going in an interesting direction. I'm going on a slight tangent, but I think this is important. They've had a deal for a while with Roush to provide engine. Obviously, Roush is the only Ford builder, so they provide engines. And then but they also built their chassis, they built their bodies. And they've slowly been going away from that. They've been building their own bodies and then building their own chassis in the hope that they become more independent. And I think part of that's also because it's only recently that Roush has gotten back on their feet. So I think when Penske came in, they showed that, the Ford camp doesn't need Roush. They can lean on Penske or they can build their own stuff. Obviously, they still need Roush Yates engines, but it's not the same juggernaut it was in the mid-2000s when they sort of ran Robert Yates Racing out of business. But anyway, based on how they were running in 2010, 2011, they weren't paying their bills. They were leaving the cars at the last track because Roush was holding their cars because they didn't get their money. They're just lucky to be in business. And so now there's been rumors about Bubba Wallace after his great tryout with that team, have him coming into a 43 car or a 44 car, or him just outright replacing Almirola. And I like Eric Almirola, but I think this is the point where he's as good as he's gonna be. And I think even if he goes to a good team, he's gonna be only a okay driver. He could have been a star, but some guys you're not in the right position to develop, and maybe he was never going to be a superstar. We don't know, but we know that he's a 1 race winner. He might be a 2 race winner or a 5 race winner. He's not going to be a superstar. He probably won't be a Cup Series champion. Might be an Xfinity Series champion down the road, or a Truck Series champion. But anyway, so Smithfield's blown up what was a handshake deal. They've been very loyal to the team in spite of lackluster results and that team's reputation. They're much more stable under Andrew Mernstein, but as opposed to the Gillette family, but they haven't been performing all that well. They won one race with Almirola, they won a race or 2 with Ambrose, but they're not a top team. But Smithfield stayed with them. They bought into the whole petty name, petty mentality. They changed their scheme from the black and white scheme to the petty blue scheme, and now they got the whole stars and stripes with the petty blue. But as it really seems like in the same way Geico has been really loyal with Casey Mears, and that's why they're sponsoring his Xfinity races with Biaggi. But in the same way, they really like Almirola. They really like him as a spokesman. And I guess when Petty talked about putting Bubba in the car, Smithfield didn't want it. And I guess that's the funny story about companies who sponsor NASCAR teams. You can never really tell why they're in the sport until something blatant like this comes up. Teams seem to be either there for the wins or there for the spokesman. And you can only tell when they do something rash what they're really there for, or even something that's telling. Like GameStop, for example, when they put Matt Kenseth in the car instead of a Bubba Wallace or a Daniel Suarez, between Logano and Eric Jones. But so like 2013, 2014, they put Matt Kenseth in the car. Matt Kenseth won some races, but he's the last guy I'm ever going to buy video games from. If I see Matt Kenseth at a GameStop, I'm getting out of that GameStop. Are you really selling games to me? Can I speak to your son Ross, please? I don't think you've ever played a game in your life, 40-year-old Matt Kenseth. Well, even when he was 20-year-old Matt Kenseth was already 40-year-old Matt Kenseth. But I digress. Teams are there either for wins or spokesmen, and we know now that Smithfield is there because they found a good spokesman. They found a good platform in Almirola, it seems. And good for him. For a while, that means for a while Eric will have a ride. But it means once again Bubba Wallace cannot get a sponsor to like him enough to give him a ride. And I think we've seen that the companies who do stick with Bubba, they do like him as a spokesman. Coca-Cola has stuck. Coca-Cola actually, I think, left for a year, and then they came back because they realized he was a good spokesman. But there's never been that big title sponsor that can fund half a season or an entire season. That's a shame. He'll be all right. I hope. I think they'll find him a sponsor. The Petty name still. I think a lot of times these companies, they don't really know anything about NASCAR. They just heard of Earnhardt or Petty or Jeff Gordon, and that's what the teams sell them on. We're owned by Richard Petty, or this guy's name is Earnhardt, or we've won X amount of championships with Jeff Gordon and Jimmy Johnson. That's what you saw with the starter clothing deal with Jeffrey Earnhardt. It took me a while. It took me until like last week to notice that car was painted like Dale Earnhardt's 3 car. I never really picked up on it until now, but that's what Starter was there, and probably Hulu is there now with Jeffrey Earnhardt because he's Dale Earnhardt Sr.'s grandson. Grandson? Yes, Carrie's son. Grandson. But they'll be, the Pettys will pick up the Petty team with Richard Petty being a figurehead will pick up a sponsor, and they'll put Bubba in the car, they'll put someone else in the car, they'll bring out 2 cars, and they'll be fine. I don't think they're shutting down. Ford stuck behind Bubba, so I wouldn't be surprised to see Ford EcoBoost on when Ford EcoBoost is on the car, that just means they don't have a sponsor, but you never know. Maybe they'd actually throw them some dollars to keep him in the car, keep that car running. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention, the Petty deal, the rumoring going to Stuart Haas, 10 car, Almirola, maybe? Or Cole Custer, maybe? You never know. Who's else on the market? Matt Kenseth's on the market, Kurt Busch is on the market. Kurt Busch already drives for that team, you idiot. That 10 car has a good chance of being a Smithfield Foods car. Let's see if there's any other NASCAR news. Probably is. This is not a last week update as much as a last few months update, I guess. Oh, I just read on J-Ski. Derek Cope parting ways with Premium Motorsports. In other words, Derek Cope doesn't have a sponsor, or Derek Cope is retiring. I have no hate against Derek Cope, but last place car, last place driver, doesn't mean anything. Next. Oh yeah, just on a related note, I can't believe BK Racing put Greg Gaulding back in their cars, man. After all that rhetoric, all that nonsense he was talking about. Oh, they're not paying their bills. Oh, they screwed the team out of sponsor money. I really think there was no sponsor money, personally, because most of those sponsors were already on the car last year. And so how somehow Gray Galding and his dad swindled sponsors that were already sponsoring the team to pay them the money instead is beyond me. Anyway, but he was back in the car. They put him in the Dr. Pepper car. Dr. Pepper is not really a sponsor. It has something to do with him being a former franchise owner now, and Dr. Pepper having a deal with Burger King and everything. So maybe they threw him a few dollars, but it's not really. I think it's just so they don't have a plain black car out there, really. Or white car, or red car, or whatever. But after everything, they put him back in the car. The press release didn't say nothing, just like, I'm glad to be back with the team. No apology on one side, no apology on the other side. No explanation, just, it's fine. We've made up, it's fine. Let me see the entry list, see if he's still in the car. Still in the car. Is it next week? Yeah, it's this week. Chicagoland. Let me see this damn entry. Gray Galding is driving the 23 car this week at Chicagoland with Jewel Osco. I guess Jewel Osco's a supermarket, right? For you guys who live in that region of the country, it's a supermarket, I think. We don't have Jewel Osco's where I live. We don't have Kroger's. We don't have Publix or Winn-Dixie or anything like that. I've been to a Publix in Florida, but Publix very nice. Very, very nice. Anyway, we don't have Albertsons. We don't have anything like that. Galding will be in the 23 car, and the 83. Currently, no one's listed in the car. I mean, they might just pull it out again, or start and park it like they did a couple years ago when they put Mike Bliss in the 93 and Mike Bliss and what's that guy's name? The guy who was a Roush driver. I know his name. I don't want to look it up. I can remember his name. Fuck it. I'm looking it up. Clay Rogers. That's his name. Clay Rogers. Short track ace. Moving on to the Xfinity race. Moving on. Check. Moving on to the Xfinity series and Friday's Xfinity race. Oh god. Stupid milk. Moving on to the Xfinity series, and last Friday's Xfinity race was one of the most boring races I've ever watched. I couldn't care less that Brad Keselowski beat Kyle Busch because that was so boring. Half the field was a lap down by halfway, and they were really trying to sell that 12th place points battle with Brendan Gaughan, Dakota Armstrong, JJ Yeley, and Blake Cook, while they were all 1 or 2 laps down in 20th. And looking at the standings now, apparently Matt Tifft has clinched on points. I don't know how that's even possible. I don't know. Matt Tifft was a good ARCA driver, but he hasn't really blown the doors down with KBM in the Truck Series, and certainly not with JGR in the Xfinity Series. I don't know what's keeping him around. He has some sponsors, Surface Sunscreen and Tunity and all of them. Brain Gear. You know, it's a good comeback story after he had the tumor, but someone else can drive that car. Ryan Preece can. I know he'll be able to wheel that car, so something for JGR to think about. Maybe give Jones and Suarez a few less races, but try to get Preece 30-35 races. Who else do they have? Christopher Bell. Christopher Bell's alright. I'm not in love with him. I'm not in love with any NASCAR driver. Just to be clear, except Kenzie Ruston. Kenzie, come back, please. Kenzie, come back. You're the only girl for my car. We was wrong. We just can't drive without you. I'm gonna leave that in. Just. Oh God. Anyway. What was the question? Xfinity Series. Matt Tifft is shit at driving. Put Ryan Preece in the car. Enough's enough already. What are we doing here? Anyway, in the Toyota pipeline, you have Todd Gilliland, Noah Gregson, basically all the KBM young drivers. Who else drives with that team? I don't know, but I would be surprised Christopher Bell is driving a KBM car full time next year. Or maybe they'll put him with JGL. No, they've already put him in the JGR car. They're not going to send him to JGL. Another guy who deserves to drive is Drew Herring. He's gotten peanuts from being the test driver. He's gotten a few okay runs with JGL, a couple runs with JGR. Joe Gibbs, but he can drive. It's really sucks. He's put cars on the pole and then not been able to race them multiple times. It's really unfortunate. Anyway, a hell of a win for Jeremy Clements the week before, though. That was awesome. Seeing him take out Matt Tifft. I forgive you, Jeremy, for if you don't remember what happened at that football game or whatever. All is forgiven, Jeremy. Don't worry about it. Don't say it ever again. Don't do it again! Anyway, Bubba Wallace gonna drive the '98 car. Shout out to Nickelodeon for giving him another sponsorship, another opportunity. Really weird why Nickelodeon sponsors NASCAR, but I'm not gonna complain. He's gonna drive the '98 car. Ironically, the one that Almirola drives and Casey Mears drives with the RPM Loose Alliance. What else? Oh, the composite bodies, like them. No complaints. I like the premise. Here's one thing, though. If, as they say, they can pop on and pop off the parts, then they should remove the no replacement parts from the 5-minute clock rule. Because if you can put it on and put it off as fast as a F1 team or an IndyCar team can change a front wing, they should be allowed to change panels. If they can do it in 5 minutes and they can get the car out running, why not? Because clearly, I don't think it's stopping all that many debris cautions. Guys are getting out there, they're running minimum speed, and then they're crashing again anyway. Let's be real here. If you can replace the parts, let them replace the parts. I do like the anti-tampering textures that they have on the hexagons. They put it at unique places so they know if you're tampering with it. Because I remember, I remember, this is how it happens every week, that teams probably do something to the car that is perhaps illegal but just not policed well enough they can't figure it out. I remember a few years ago, Red Bull Racing was, or Team Red Bull or whatever they were called. They were fined and suspended or whatever, putting the hoods in acid to make them thinner. I don't know how they found out they were doing it, but obviously it makes you wonder what else is being done that is either illegal or just something that maybe Gibbs can do, but a team like JD Motorsports, the 0, 01, and 4 cars, the Flex Seal cars, they can't do because they wouldn't have the money to figure something like that out. So hopefully that puts a clamp down on that sort of thing. But they'll always find a way. And I'm just reading here on J-Ski. JD Motorsports and MBM Motorsports, aka Carl Long Motorsports, aka Derek White Goes to Jail Motorsports, are going to be in some reality show. That's interesting. Anyway. Moving on to the Camping World Truck Series. Tyler Hughes making his debut. I don't know who he is. Great stuff. Nickelodeon sponsoring more cars. Trucks. John Hunter Nemechek. Jennifer Joe. Oh, good for Jennifer Joe. Getting a real sponsor on there. Won't make the truck any faster, but maybe we can buy some more tires. Evidently, Austin Cindric won the last race, which is cool, I guess. Austin, I suppose, isn't a bad driver, but he hasn't, other than road courses, he hasn't really shown anything special. So he's Tim Cindric's son. Tim Cindric's the CEO of Penske Racing or something like that. That's why he's in the truck. Good for him. Whatever. Oh, they're going to sponsor Matt DiBenedetto, Jeffrey Earnhardt, Nickelodeon, I should say. Matt Tift, Bubba Wallace, Jennifer Joe, and John Hunter. And the elimination playoffs for the Truck Series. Bell, Nemechek, Sauter, Crafton, Kaz Gralla, Austin Cindric, Briscoe, and Ben Rhodes. Ben Rhodes needs to be an Xfinity car. I don't think the ThorSport stuff's good enough for him. He needs to be an Xfinity car. Junior Motorsports, get back on that. Ryan Truex, good year and not so good equipment. Grant Enfinger, love him, needs to step up. Noah Gragson, fuck off. Justin Haley, fuck off. I don't think Justin Haley should even be eligible because he didn't run at Daytona. Yep, that's all. Bye, Truck Series. I'm ashamed about BKR leaving the series. You know, people saying the series is imploding. That would be a real shame because that's one of the few series where everyone's really on as close to equal footing as possible. Also with Brad, unlike KBM, which pretty much gives rise to Toyota drivers and JGR drivers, Brad really put whoever he wanted in there. And so a lot of drivers got opportunities. Tyler Reddick, Chase Briscoe, Austin Terrio. I mean, Ryan Blaney was a Penske driver, and so was Parker Kligerman, so it doesn't really count. But, you know, those guys weren't part of the Penske program, except for Blaney and Parker. And they still aren't, and that shows. But they did, again, you know, a lot of them are going to move up, and that's pretty good. Except Austin Terrio, who's stuck in the ARCA series. Oh, and who else? Ross Chastain drove trucks for them too. That's a shame. Anyway, moving on to the world of Formula 1 and F2 and GP3, and this is where you NASCAR only fans can click off. Thanks for listening if you listen this far. So, big news in F1 is the crazy Renault, McLaren, Toro Rosso, Honda thing that is involving trading engines and drivers, and it's so insane how everything is just so intertwined somehow. But anyway, Carlos Sainz apparently going to Renault F1, Renault Sport, in exchange for Toro Rosso to leave their Honda deal with Renault and leave their engine deal with Renault, God's sake, and go to Honda. And the rumor is that they're testing engines. In the event that the engines become better, then Red Bull will jump onto the Honda power units. So, and in exchange, McLaren gets Renault engines, and you know, it can't get any worse, I suppose. But if Honda is fast next year, bye Alonso. Enjoy IndyCar. And so Sainz going to Renault. That means Kubica is not going to be in that car. And also means Jolene Palmer is definitely... Bye, Palmer. It's fun. It was fun while it lasted, wasn't it? No. My favorite Palmer moment, him crashing on the first lap in Monaco in 2015, right after his teammate went in for inters, and the NBC guy thought was not Hulkenberg? Yeah, not Hulkenberg. Magnussen had crashed, but it was Palmer crashing on full wets in the first turn. But also, Gasly letting out secret that he's going to be driving a Toro Rosso car next year. Not surprised. I think they waited too long. A lot of people are down on Gasly. I saw him in GP2. I think he's almost as good or almost as good as Charles Leclerc. I think he's going to be a really good driver. And, you know, he'll be riding around in the Toro Rosso as the Toro Rosso often does. And better than being in Super Formula, I guess. That means who's going to be in the second Toro Rosso? Will it be Danny Kvyat? Insert Danny Kvyat picture reel here.
Daniel Kvyat, Daniel Kvyat, Daniel Kvyat, Daniel Kvyat, Daniel Kvyat, Daniel Kvyat.
Surprise, motherfucker!
We're considering switching to an alternate.
Will it be another veteran driver or another young driver? I'm sure Red Bull has other young drivers. I don't know any of their names. I don't care about any of their names. So someone will drive that car. Gasly will be more or less number one, or number one in spirit. I don't think it's going to be Danny Kvyat, but you never know. You never know when you're going to need a torpedo. And the switch between Sainz and Gasly could happen mid-season, which is interesting. Means bye, Palmer. Nice having you. So this is just out. I'm reading this at 2:53 on Tuesday afternoon. McLaren and Honda officially agreed to end their partnership, and they'll be switching. McLaren will be switching to Renault. I recorded the rest of this mostly yesterday, so this is it's not surprising. Yeah, so Hamilton won at Monza 2 weeks ago, if I remember correctly. It wasn't a great race, but it was nice that Ferrari was nowhere. Their home track. Qualifying was great, but Ferrari was nowhere in qualifying, and in last round of qualifying, and they were nowhere in the race. Shout out to Raikkonen for wasting that seat when it should be going to Giovinazzi or Leclerc. On a final related note, Sauber F1 planning on hiring 100 new staff members to bring it up to 500. On the one hand, it's interesting how many staff members is required in Formula 1, because I think that is about as big as Hendrick Motorsports is. At the same time, Sauber, why bother? You got a new engine this year? I read something, I think last week. They're planning on throwing out everything from this year's car and building a brand new car. Good for them, I guess. I don't think it's going to make them much faster, especially with Grandpa Marcus Ericsson driving that car. If you're going to have a pay driver, have a faster pay driver. Frickin' Maldonado, at least he's going to run it fast before he crashes. But I've also been hearing that's basically going to become a Ferrari B team or C team even. Which means there's nowhere really for Pascal Wehrlein to go unless a Williams seat opens and he's a little too young because of Martini, or Force India seat opens and they don't like him. They didn't pick him. They picked Ocon to drive that car, and other than trying to crash his teammate every week, it's been working out. So I've never seen a driver I guess maybe I have. Nasser sort of got pushed out of F1 as well. But it seems like Wehrlein might get that treatment too, even though he's very fast, very talented. And that's unfortunate. Now, if you're in fact listening to this on a Tuesday, and if this comes out on a Tuesday, then that means NASCAR Heat 2 came out today. And I should have... My first video should have been uploaded by now, even though at the moment it's taking forever. I would have uploaded earlier, but I fell asleep. But anyway, it's, I'll wait for my review whether to encourage people to buy it or not to buy it, but put it this way, it's not the most exciting NASCAR release ever. I can't say that from first looks. But, if you have to get every NASCAR game, then, it's not the end of the world, I suppose. That's all I'll say about that. And thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed this little podcast, Rage Rant. Whatever this is, if you enjoyed, leave a like. Subscribe for more NASCAR F1 related content, MLB related content on occasion. Nice plug. And hopefully I'll talk to you next week. Another plug. Watch my NASCAR Heat 2 videos. Nice plug. NASCAR Thunder 2004 Chainwheel Career Mode. What? Oh, and as a nod to a previous video, next week you may hear the NASCAR Heat 2 Rage podcast with your host, whatever my YouTube channel name is. Yeah.